time when you have Richard Nixon being greeted by throngs of adoring crowds. Things will change. Okay. So this is a wake-up call. The United States, U.S. officials understand, whoa, wait a minute, the tranquil backdoor area or backyard area is maybe not so tranquil. And one thing that Nixon actually pushes to his credit, and in this he's supported very, very strongly by Milton Eisenhower, is, well, maybe we need to revisit at least our presentation of the policies. He said maybe instead of being so close with American dictators, or pardon me, American-sponsored dictators, Nixon, then maybe what we need to do is just kind of put them at arm's length. Okay, so he suggests, for the democratic leaders that are emerging in Latin American countries, let's give them an abrazo, an embrace. And for the dictators, a handshake, a much more distant, much more formal greeting, but still a greeting, still a relationship. And it's in this kind of context of American policy and this kind of rising tide of Latin American nationalism and anger that you have the context then of Fidel Castro and the 26th of July movement coming to power in 1959. Okay, so, and yeah, that's a backstory, but it's not even a backstory. I would consider it part one to the alliance. So that's why I wanted to spend as much time on it as we have. But any questions on that so far? Comments, anything? Okay. In terms of its immediate importance to this idea of the alliance, I'm going to go back to something that, I'm sorry, what's wrong? Brad, that Brad picked out in that Che Guevara document. Okay. Yeah, so what? It's Cuba. It's an island. And, who cares? Okay. What did Che? What does he say there in terms of that thing that he quoted with other Latin American nations? Oh, it said it would be an example for every country. Okay. Yeah. So when Castro comes to power, it's in opposition to the oppression, the political oppression of the Batista government, and it's in opposition to what Castro and many Cubans see as the economic and political dominance of the United States in Cuban affairs. Okay. And again, I think maybe you discussed that. I saw Platt Amendment, I think, up there on the board, and so I think you're familiar with that history of dominance, right? Okay. So what does Castro start to do? He starts to, I guess, in a general sense, talk smack about the United States a little bit. Okay. His rhetoric has an anti-American flavor to it. Okay. Later on, he's going to talk about things that Che mentioned, like land reform. Okay. There were certain industries that totally dominated Cuba, like the sugar industry, the telephone and telegraph industry, things like that. And Fidel started saying, all right, well, we're going to expropriate those industries. We're going to take them over. The state will take them over, and they'll compensate them. We'll give them some money so we're not just stealing from them. But these are going to be run by Cubans now and not the United States. Okay, and so to put it mildly, that kind of policy did not go over very well with the United States because it looks like, and it is, interference in with American business interests. And the rhetoric is certainly alarming to Americans such as President Eisenhower. Okay. And then with that, it's not just Cuba anymore. Cuba is not just, Fidel is not just reorienting Cuba. Now, according to Che Guevara, he's saying this is something that we want to spread everywhere in Latin America. And again, Americans often think about Europe in terms of economic importance. Even then, in the 50s, Latin America was the #1 market collectively for American exports. So if you want to trade, interact economically with Latin America, then you probably don't want to see the rest of Latin America adopting Cuba as their model for economic development, right? That's the threat that Cuba poses to the United States. It's the idea that, no, you know what, you don't have to go the route of private capital investment and simply invite John D. Rockefeller and other wealthy entrepreneurs that will dictate to you how you're going to run your country. And that's how many Latin Americans, not all, but that's how many of them perceive it. Now there's a different way.